Okay, so we've talked about acquiring single-family properties as an investment vehicle for real estate income properties. How do we select these? That becomes probably one of the prime ingredients in any decision-making factor. So in any hometown, you're going to have a optimum amount that people will pay for rent. Now, I'll tell you what it is here in Phoenix, and you can translate it into your own hometown, but I'm going to tell you that typically you're going to want to find something maybe 20, 30 minutes away from your house. Could maybe go 40 if you need to, because you're going to be meeting people at the unit. You're going to be meeting workmen, insurance people, appraisers, tenants, and you're going to be going there to check on your property, so you don't want too terribly far. And quite honestly, we're blessed here in the United States, but we have just tons of areas that become very, very suitable for income properties and for investment properties for ourselves. If you're in a high rent district like New York, San Francisco, Seattle, San Diego, Sydney, Hong Kong, these strategies probably won't work for you. We have a different type of strategy. Those are typically very rich, and those would concern me. So if you can't find anything in your neighborhood, you may have to look into a different city, in which case you want to find a very good broker. There's just tons of them out there. Just interview them, tell them what we're looking to do, and make sure that you find someone that's suitable for it. I'll tell you what we have here in Phoenix. We're blessed. We look for neighborhoods that are very stable, and they look for our target market. Now, I've been in rental business for 40 years, and over that time frame, there's just tons of markets. Now, you could be in a marketplace that's near a university, in which case, probably student housing, where car storage, garages, parking places just aren't all that important. What you're going to need to do is see bus transportation and bicycle racks, and close to convenience stores and small restaurants. And if you're in a big city, maybe it's a subway line, or if you're out in a country, maybe it's a certain exit that people are looking for. We have religious people are looking for a parish or a synagogue that's important to them. But here in Phoenix, what we have is we have found, at least in the demographics that we're used to. I mean, here again, we're not going to exclude anybody, but generally we find that if we rent a 3-bedroom, 2-bath home, could be a 4-bedroom, 2-bath home, 2-car garage with a backyard, we'd like it to be within 5 or 10 minutes of one of the major freeways we have in town, so that they're able to get almost anywhere in town. We'd like to have a decent school district. That most of them, we're blessed here in Phoenix that we have some very, very good school districts, and be near some kind of transportation on the bus line in case they're not driving. So we want something 3-bedroom, 2-bath, could be a 4-bedroom, 2-car garage, some kind of a backyard, and what we're looking for is mom, dad, and a couple of kids. That just seems to be who our target market is. They set down roots for a very long time, and we're looking to reduce our vacancy factor. We reduce our vacancy factor by having the tenant stay a long time, and typically our tenant will stay 2, 3, 4 years. I have tenants that have stayed 10. I've had tenants that have stayed 15 years, and what happens is the tenant, this becomes their home. So this becomes universal homes. Now, these are the type of properties that we're looking for, but they need to be on the low end. So typically, could be a starter area. It could be that next tier after a starter area. Could be 2 tiers above a starter area. But quite honestly, if you start getting into the high rent district, sure, they'll rent immediately. But keep in mind that we are income investors. We're looking for a cash flow. If the property doesn't cash flow, it's not for us. And if we're in an area that can't cash flow, we need to go find another area. But typically here in Phoenix, I use a universe of homes, and they are one of those tiers. Either it's a starter home, the first tier, or it's the second tier. Typically, that'll run we can get homes here in Phoenix for as little as maybe $120,000. That's a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, not very big, maybe 1,000, 1,200 square feet. That's going to rent for $995. We need to make sure that we can get that at a price good enough that if we put 30% down or 20% down, just depending on what the sweet spot is, that we have a cash flow to that. And typically, we can do that. And these homes are sold in ranges, so let's just concentrate on one that's sold between $100,000 and $120,000. Now, if it is in one of our universes of homes, we want to look at everything in the neighborhood. We want to get very, very good at that neighborhood. We want to know where the financing, or where the schools are, how well they get financed, what the appraisal values have been, where the transportation's at, bus lines are at, and we get a feel for what's going on in a neighborhood. Typically, we like to be in a path of growth, so we're getting 1 to 3% growth on the property every year. And if we know our areas, and we would know a value when it comes on the market, because as you know, every house is different. As soon as they're sold, people start landscaping them differently. They put in different upgrades. They put in different window treatments, and they all care for it differently. So we find, say, in the low end, like a starter area. Let's just start with that. If the property starts between $100,000 and $120,000, we're going to look for those properties on the lower end. Now, if you are doing your homework and you're looking at hundreds of properties, so that you know whether the property in that particular universe of homes is either on the low end or on the high end. So if you see a property comes on the market at $100,000 and they're going between 100 and 120, then you know that you're on the low end of that market. Now, if it came on the market at 95, then you would know that there's probably something wrong with it. You go look at it and say, goodness gracious, we're going to standardize it, we're going to repaint it, we're going to clean it, we're going to maybe put some new carpeting in the property, maybe we're going to put some window treatments in and make it look real nice, we're going to touch up the yard and touch up any we're going to repair anything that's wrong. And typically we get about $2,500 that we spend just standardizing our property. So if this is $5,000 below the range, that means we've got a little bit extra to spend. So if we went in and spent $5,000, so buy it for $95,000, put $5,000 into it, but now instead of it being on the low end, it's on the high end. So if we spent $5,000, and let's say you could look at it and say, well, gosh, this would be one of those properties that would really be worth a lot more than the 100 end. They'd be closer to the 120 end. Then you've added value to the property. So let's just look at that. If we are in a neighborhood that is one of our universal homes, we buy it at a discount. We put the money in to rehab the property or just bring it up to standard. And if we paid $95, we have 5 into it, we have 100, but it's worth 115, then that's 15% on a cash purchase of $95,000 plus 5, 100. It means we've already returned our first year, we got a 15% return. What if you put 20% down on the property? So you put 20% down on 95, so that would be 17.5, or 17.5. And if we put another 5, so we've got 22,500 into it. But that 22,500 has enabled us now to have a house for 115. We've increased it by 15%, or $15,000. That 22.5 now has grown from 22.5 to 37.5. And that will give us about a 70% return just on buying at the low end of the properties, rehabbing them, updating them, bringing them up, and keeping that property. So not only do you get cash flow off that property, but now we've added value to it. So we've got both ends of the spectrum. So that property should be cash flowing for us. So could be, if it's really conservative, we could be getting a 3%, could be as high as 5 or 6%, but we're going to get some kind of cash flow. Now keep in mind that we also would like you to be putting down on a loan, you're going to have some kind of principal reduction. The first couple of years, we really don't do too terribly much. But your first year on $100,000, you're going to get probably $700-800 in cash flow. It should be typically about 3% return for yourself, just on a hidden principal reduction. Now keep in mind that the beauty of buying real estate, unlike any other income vehicles, is that the real estate's going to grow. And in good years, we generally look at about 2.5 to 3.5% growth of rent. So if we rented this, say, for $1,000 a month, next year we get $1,030. Year after that, you get $1,060. After that, you're up to $1,090. That's what grows our real estate. Now, it doesn't always go in a linear fashion like that, but it does tend to go up. So what I normally would advise on one of our strategies would be you acquire this property in your universal homes. You would then, after the third year, take your income that you've received, that's the additional increase, and use that as a principal reduction. So Once you get up to, say, you've had 3 increases, your 4th increase, you put that down as a principal reduction. The next year you get another increase, put that down as a principal reduction. And so within 12 to 15 years, that house should be paid off. And then you'd have a free and clear asset. So what if we were into, I'll show you a couple other pictures that we have here in Phoenix, but there's different levels, and it's up to you to talk to a broker in your neighborhood and in your area to ascertain what's the good rental values. So you can go in Scottsdale and get a 1,500 square foot house. That's going to run you $350,000 to $450,000. Not going to cash flow very well. If you go into Phoenix, which would be maybe 3 or 4 miles to the west, you can get that same type of home for $225,000. If you go a little further than that, you can get it probably around $200,000. So at $200,000, the rent's going to be about the same. You're going to find that a 14, 15, 1,600 square foot house going to rent from $1,100 to $1,300. And the closer you get down to the low 200s, the more cash flow that you get. So your broker will be able to tell you where these are, and you'll get to know the universe of homes. So once you identify them, I'd say there's probably 5 or 6 near you within 40 minutes. Here in Phoenix, we're blessed with them. I've got 10 or 15 that we do business with, and we get to know what's a good value, what's not a good value. We get to know what the problems are. If for some reason we're having problems in a neighborhood, we're going to move out. We generally typically don't have that. Most of our universe of homes are just stable growers that we've had for years and years and years and years. I have properties I've owned for over 30 years, still in the same neighborhoods. Neighborhoods have just gotten better, and they just keep growing and growing and growing. So I'm going to put a couple of pictures of the typical rental that we have here in Phoenix. This is going to be translate probably pretty close to what you have in your neighborhood. But here in Phoenix, you'd look for a 3-bedroom or a 4-bedroom, 2-bath, 2-car garage, carport, something with a backyard in a stable neighborhood that has decent schools, close to bus lines, and close to a major freeway. So you're welcome to take a look at this. Universal Homes, shop, so that you know what you're looking at, and then we'll talk about being able to figure out what the cash flow is on these properties. So if you have any kind of questions, you're welcome to call me, and my very best to you. Bye-bye now.